Hi, everybody!
Hi, Dr. Nat.
Season 3 of The Handmaid's Tale is on its way.
Praise fucking be.
Yeah, what she said.
Blessed day.
When is the blessed day, you ask? June 5th. Wait, June? June? Coincidence? I think not. Here's my theory. Although the first 2 seasons often deviated from June's story, for reasons I will get to in a bit, I'm reckoning that the third, and maybe final, season will follow June more closely, pulling all the narrative threads together. You see, it's the title, The Handmaid's Tale, singular. Together with the way that June is renamed Offred, or of Red, positioning her as a representative of all handmaids. At first, it made me think that this is just a simple narrative device. Tell the story of a nation by following one character. But what if June is actually more important to the story of Gilead than just representing a typical handmaid? What if, in Season 3, we see her take action beyond the typical? In fact, it's fair to say she already has. So to prepare us for Season 3, let's look at what was left hanging off a cliff at the end of Season 2 that we can rightfully expect answers to, how the show has set up those expectations, and any clues to what those answers might be.
Spoiler!
The show is based upon Margaret Atwood's 1985 novel of the same name, but the events on screen have long gone beyond what happened in the novel. Maybe that's why Atwood slapped June in the first episode.
How's it feel? Oh, it's fine.
But to be fair, Atwood has been involved with the show as consulting producer from the beginning, and is reportedly writing a new novel that continues The Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, the original author's fingerprints are all over this show. Maybe the third season will show June slapping Atwood back like she did to Waterford in Season 2. Watch out, June is going off, Fred. But seriously, who is going to get slapped in Season 3? In the Season 2 finale, June chooses to stay in Gilead. While shocking at first, this is entirely logical when we recall the promise she made to herself in the very first episode.
Because I intend to survive. For her. Her name is Hannah.
So the question we are left with is not why she stayed, but how can she stay? How will she stay safe after transgressing so blatantly? She enabled the escape of a child, the most precious resource in Gilead. How can she get away with that? Admittedly, she's gotten away with a lot before and still has both eyes, 10 fingers and intact genitals. But is the possibility of permanent harm to June consistent with the show so far? Because of course handmaids do actually have great power, as the few fertile women left. Maybe all they need is a leader. Emily seems safe, praise be. I mean, after witnessing her lover being hanged in front of her, her genital mutilation, and her banishment to the polluted colonies that saw her lose teeth, it is, quite frankly, a relief to see her get out at the end of Season 2. But if Season 3 starts with that van getting caught, I'm out! I will not be happy. Plus, she has baby Holly with her now, so we, the audience, desperately need reassurance, preferably in episode 1 of Season 3, that she makes it out. But should we find out something June cannot know?
Call her Nicole.
Oh, sorry, Holly is now Nicole, the name Serena chose. And what of Serena Joy? She's been left disillusioned and devastated by the state's response to her appeal to let women read again. They took her finger for it. Ah, the irony. All those times she didn't lift a finger to help June. But she still helped June get the baby out. But before we can look forward to Serena and June joining forces in some kind of organised resistance, despite having loathed each other for 2 seasons, first we have to wonder how can they maintain their positions. Positions that had until this moment afforded them some safety. June is a fertile woman and Serena is the wife of a high-ranking commander. Yes, both women are now bonded by their sacrificial acts, choosing separation from the baby for the good of the child, but can they continue to work together behind the scenes while appearing to still be in opposition? And then there are the other accomplices. The commander's driver, Nick, pulled a gun on Fred to aid in the baby's escape, and Rita, the household's Martha, has risked the exposure of the underground network of Marthas, also in aiding the escape of the baby. Will either of them be able to stay safe? Or will one of them become a scapegoat, the person June and Serena will have to sacrifice to save themselves? And then there's Aunt Lydia. Does she live or die? Emily's attack on her didn't seem fatal, so I expected her to live, but how will she respond? We've been given glimpses of her humanity, her love for her girls, and her emotional investment in the endeavours to bring children into the world.
I would never, ever allow anything to happen to a baby.
But she's also been cruel and very brutal. That don't just happen, she got issues. Will Emily's attack make her harder or softer? If the show's central message is how the destruction of individuality and the removal of human rights makes people into monsters, then explaining how Aunt Lydia became a fascist and how she responds to Emily's attack would be justified. If only this wasn't the Handmaid's Tale. So, look, the purist in me, I know the show is a warning against being too puritanical, but the purist in me gets a little annoyed when the show diverts away from June's story and tells stories that June is oblivious to. It started early. Episode 6 of Season 1, the Mexican ambassador's assistant tells June that Luke is alive in Canada and that he can get a message to him.
He's alive.
That's fine, but then the following episode is entirely devoted to Luke's story of escape from Gilead. This is reassuring to us, the audience, but June cannot know for sure that it isn't a mistake or a lie. Similar diversions into Moira's escape story, or Serena's backstory, or the Waterfords in Canada just feel too far away from June's story for me. And here's why it bothers me. The show has gone to great lengths to make us feel the same way June does. Uses tight close-ups to create the feeling of being trapped. It composes frames to put June at the edges and uses high angles looking down on her to show her powerlessness. It uses shallow depth of field to replicate her feeling of not being able to see everything that is going on. Her costume restricts her view and our view of her at times. The voiceover is reserved for June.
I need to scream.
To let us in on her inner world.
I need to grab the nearest machine gun.
Should we walk home by the river?
In contrast with her behaviour in the outer world.
That would be nice.
And all the flashbacks are from June's point of view, introduced at times that are related to what she is going through in the present, and looking very dreamy like memories. We are June. So to show Luke's story of escape to Canada and later Moira's story, well, it just undoes this for me. Look, if good storytelling is about giving us enough reason to care what happens next, but leaving enough out for us to not be able to accurately predict what's going to happen next, then the show had to go down this path. I mean, these side stories have an impact on how what happens happens. We need to know them so that we can believe what happens to June. She doesn't actually need to believe in them in the way the audience does. Does that make sense? I mean, otherwise we'd be sitting there getting frustrated and thinking, why doesn't she just climb out the window and run for the border? I mean, how hard can it be? Well, Luke's and Moira's stories show us exactly how hard it is. And it makes Season 2's escape attempt even more nerve-wracking for us, the audience, because we know more than June does the obstacles in her way. But, and maybe it's the vegan in me, but I would have liked to have seen the show stick to the principle of telling the tale from just the one handmaid's point of view, despite all the suffering that would have put the story through. Or, can you have your cake, vegan of course, and eat it too?
I think I've earned a whole cake.
What is the show really about? Remember that very first scene of the very first episode? June, Luke and Hannah on the run, getting captured and separated. And that same very first episode concludes with June's vow to survive and find Hannah. The show has set up the expectation that this will be resolved. It's a classic will they or won't they, and curse any show that doesn't resolve the initial question.
Wait a minute. That flashback raised more questions than it answered.
So a new season needs to keep dangling the tantalizing prospect of a full reunion of June, Luke and Hannah in front of us. And even secondary characters like Moira and Nick, they're still in the frame for a happy ending. You see, for all the bleak misery of the show, precious few characters we were made to love have paid the ultimate price. Sure, June's been raped, beaten and psychologically tortured, separated from her husband and children, exposed to countless acts of brutality, not to mention having her basic human rights denied and forced into a hopeless life of servitude. But she and all the others she, and by extension we, care about have survived relatively unscathed. Unlike other shows. Sure, Janine has lost an eye, Emily's had her genitals mutilated, and Serena, just as we come to feel she might turn to the good side, has had her finger cut off. But all the hangings and the severe acts of brutality we are shown happen to characters we are least invested in. This sets us on a path to believe that a happy ending for all we care about, is possible. But back to that vegan cake, that whole having it and eating it idea.
Bran. Great.
Overall, the show is both June's story and a story about how a totalitarian, puritanical regime can rise in response to an environmental crisis, in this case infertility, and can lead to the destruction of human rights of specific groups, in this case women. The regime separates women based upon their roles, not just separating the fertile from the infertile. Unmarried infertile women are also repressed and given roles as Marthas, domestic staff, or aunts, fascist midwives. In this way, the show is really about the erosion of female individuality. Every woman has been renamed and repositioned in a theocratic hierarchy. Uniforms are used to denote function, yes, but they also remove individual uniqueness. Could the show in the third season move away from a story about an individual in Gilead and explore how human rights could be restored to all? Look, it's easy to see the show as a warning against the current divisions in society and the dangers of any enforced conformity for the so-called benefit of society. But can the show offer solutions that apply to our contemporary societies? Atwood has stated that the events in The Handmaid's Tale are based upon things that have actually happened in human history. So could the third season again look at actual human history and point to how free societies of the present have overcome tyranny and repression in their pasts to empower individuals and restore human rights? So, are there any clues in the trailer? Well, the majority of footage and voiceover is from previous seasons. The two shots that strike me as new are Serena standing in front of a burning building, perhaps an indication that Serena will rebel more violently, and the handmaids assembled at the National Mall in front of the Washington Monument, now converted into a giant cross. A cross? But in episode 1, the regime hang a Catholic priest, and in episode 2, they tear down a Catholic church. So maybe Gilead is Protestant? There's no actual mention of Christ at all. There's lots of God talk, but it seems to be the Old Testament angry, spiteful, violent God. Jesus just don't get a mention. So is Christianity the handmaid's religion? Are they going to rebel like early Christians did? Let's look at that trailer again. It ends with June saying,
I want to keep on living for her.
And then June telling Moira,
Don't let them grind you down. You fight.
and then a shot of June standing at the head of a table looking very leader-like.
They should have never given us uniforms if they didn't want us to be an army.
Guess when June said that? First episode, season 1. Boom, it was there all along. The show will continue to tell both June's story and the story of all Gilead by having June lead an army of handmaids. As long as the story doesn't actually, crucify the leader to save everyone. Oh, and the look on June's face in the closing shots of season 2. She goes from the devastation of separating from her baby to this look of fierce determination. I mean, she can rightly feel a sense of triumph at getting Nicole out, but also she looks somewhat vengeful, not just righteous and self-assured. She looks not just grimly determined, she looks like she's going to enjoy doing some harm to those who have hurt her and her loved ones. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into that look, but it looks to me like someone prepared to die for the cause.
Ruh-roh.
Not a doctor.
of medicine.
Oh, no! No! Someone taped over the end of this!